Gentlemen, how are you both doing?
Okay.
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
So this is going to sound so like a little bit stupid, but it's true. A lot of people hear the term production designer or visual concept artist or film commissioner, and like they know the words and they think they know what it actually means. But I actually want to ask you, like, can you explain to people what does a production designer do? What does a concept artist, the positions you've done in Hollywood, like what do they actually do? And for you as the Malta Film Commissioner, what does it actually mean to be the film commissioner of a country?
I want to be able to say, no, I actually have no idea. And part of the reason is because when I got into doing production design in the very beginning, back in 1974, my mentor, who was one of the top production designers at the time, Richard Silbert, who worked on movies like Chinatown and big hits at the time, he said, no one's ever going to know what you do. So, and here I am all these years later, and it's the big question, of course, well, what's the production designer do? And for me, it's seriously been a journey of discovery each film to make my role something that's important with the director in terms of how they stage their movie, how they create the worlds, and the ideas that are in the movie. And so I'm constantly in an evolving process. And of course, physically, I have to be responsible for the sets. Digitally, I have to be responsible for the look of the extensions and the overall feel of it. But it's not something that people who don't make movies really can see. You can hear about it, and it's kind of interesting to see a set be built. You go, yeah, but who's in it? What's it about? That's all you want to know. And so our job, at least my job, and the art department is to explore a subject, make it as rich and detailed and authentic as possible, and something that the director and the actors and the cinematography can all work with in order to create something that's an illusion that you believe, and that you believe you're somewhere, and you're not.
Let me just do a follow-up real fast. I don't think people realize how long your job lasts. And it, like, for some people, they come on to set when filming begins, filming ends, they're done. But with you, like, let's talk about, I'll just use Munich as an example because it was filmed here in Malta. But for example, like, how early on do you get on a project and how long are you on it after production wraps?
Well, and if I was just taking Malta as an example, which is a little bit different in that it's a location-based movie for the most part, but I was on actually the first time 2.5 years before the movie was made, because I went out to look for the locations in Europe, how to create 14 different countries. And the solution turned out to be to come to Malta to do half of the movie and make 7 different countries here. But it took going to the various places that the movie was supposed to be set in the 1970s, and then understanding how to do it economically, but also to get a look that was unique and that would be new. And Malta provided that, but I was on for a long time. Then the movie was shut down. So then we went on to other things for a while, and then it came back, and then I joined the production again. But often it's at least 9 months to be on the prep, then the shoot, and then often into post. I'm called in, not on full time all the time, but a lot of to go all the way through to make sure the look that we've established in the beginning is being carried over, and that the ideas are still there and not kind of put through so many different people that you lose, sight of what's important.
Let's talk about being a film commissioner. I don't think there's not a lot of film commissioners for a country. I mean, there's only I'm sort of off the path. What talk a little bit about what being the Malta Film Commissioner actually means. What does the job entail? Let's get into it.
Basically, the job is to get business to Malta, and also to get inward business towards our country, building also the crews and making sure that we have a strong product. So the film commissioner, the primary aim of the film commissioner is to get business to Malta and also to strengthen the brand image of Malta in terms of the film industry on a global stage. So basically it's marketing too. So under my administration, I have been commissioner for a bit over 7 years. We strengthened our product, we developed our product, we increased our tax rebate, to 40%. And also, we lobbied the government to put further investment towards film infrastructure. In fact, today, we are on the doorstep of reaching out investors to build the first soundstage in Malta, which would be a world-class soundstage. Also, we saw the industry from a seasonal one turning into not just back-to-back, but an industry working every day, all year round. Today we have over 1,000 people working, 1,000 crew, local crew, working in film in Malta, all year round. 8 out of 10 of the crew working in film are Maltese. So the biggest challenge was to turn the industry from a seasonal one to an industry working all year round. And I think that we have achieved it.
I'm very curious, if you could go back in time to when you first started as a film commissioner, what advice or what would you tell yourself that you've learned? Because on every job that you do, you learn and you pivot into what's coming. So I'm just curious, like, what are some of the big lessons you've learned over the 7 years that you wish you almost had started sooner? Or do you think you couldn't start sooner because each year has sort of built to where you are now?
I mean, I wasn't afraid of taking, challenging the status quo and changing things. And for me, change is a process, not an ending. So I think that it was a journey. It was a journey. And we continue to build our vision based on the experience gained on a daily level. But looking back, we turned the industry, and this is one of my biggest satisfactions in the job, that we turned the industry completely. I mean, we are celebrating today 100 years of film in Malta. And the last 5 years were the best years ever. In the last 5 years, the industry generated over $1 billion into our economy. 2023, it was the best year ever of film in Malta. We were 18% of the economic growth of our nation, 1/6. That means that we created more jobs. We sustained 15,000 jobs in Malta. This has been a success story. And a success story because we have worked together, we had a resilient strategy, and it worked.
I have so many follow-ups, but I'm going to switch, if you don't mind, because I'm going to go back and forth. I have to bring up a past project with you because one of my all-time favorite films is The Goonies. And you did work on The Goonies, I believe, as an art director. And I just have to ask you, what do you remember about making The Goonies? And I'll start with that because for a lot of people my age, it means a lot.
Well, I'm a Goonie. I was a Goonie then. I'm a Goonie now. It was the decisive experience as a young man in my early 30s to work with Michael Riva, the production designer, and Dick Donner and Steven Spielberg. And if I look at the amount of life and interest and just gooniness that got into me, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I mean, because I'm 75. So if I'm talking to you and saying I'm a Goonie, what does that mean? Sounds cute, but I'll actually say, I'll go just through a few riffs because it's sort of the experience of being with, first of all, it's where I met Steven Spielberg because he was the person who wrote the story, was the executive producer, and was the second unit director. And when he came over to look at the sets, the production designer, Michael Riva, was a good friend and fantastic mentor. And Dick Donner was a wonderful director. They were often a location scout. So I took Steven and Kathy Kennedy, his producer, around the sound stages. But I did it in the order of the movie. So I started with the lighthouse and went down underneath to the level below. These were in different sound stages. And then to the Cave of the Pipes and through all the Rube Goldberg contraptions to get to, voila, the ship. And there's the ship that we built. And it really was fun to show Steven in a narrative order that progression of his story that he hadn't seen any of it. And I think that's why he took some attention to who I was, and I offered the amazing stories to me. And then I've done 11 movies with him since then. So that's a pretty big moment where we were sharing our gooniness. Then I was covering all of his work as second unit director. So we had lots of dialogue, back and forth, got to know each other. We're not that far apart in age. I'm 3 years younger. He's like an older brother. And at the same time, I was like aware that he had done so much and was doing so much. And Michael and I were like these two kids in a candy shop making all this stuff. And I had this epiphany on the movie, which was I was coming up over the hill, driving to work into the valley. And I was actually had that fear factor that you can have, of course, in making any movie. But as a young person, I realized we don't know what we're doing. Well, this is really difficult to make this ship, the caves and everything, and on time. And we're really just pushing the boundaries, because in those days, studio work had been condensed to mostly location kinds of movies. So I was thinking, God, I don't know how we're going to do this. And then I had this light bulb go off. Literally, as I was cresting Mulholland, that's in Los Angeles, and I thought, if I was 10 years old, I would want this movie. I'd want to do this job. I would want to be a swashbuckler, paid to be a swashbuckler. I'm not doing my father's work, another generation. This is ours. And that's the gooniness. When you recognize, it's even in the theme of the movie, which is, this is our time down here. This is not the time that's being controlled by the adults or the restrictions of reality. Instead, for me, it was, this is a kind of experience that we all knew we were having, and we were leading to this treasure, right? That would be taken away, but you have just enough to save the day. So that kind of Goonies adventure along the way got deeply into me. And that's the way I've approached every movie since, particularly with Spielberg, but also with Bob Zemeckis, Jim Cameron, these adventures that I get to go on. And I'm a believer. I get in there like we're really living it. And so, when you have, I always enjoy, answering a question about Goonies, because so many people of a certain age took it in. And I think they took it in a way, not watching it necessarily on a big screen, but at home on either video or this. And when you're so young, the parents can let you just go watch it, and you watch it episodically or parts of it. And it just gets in there, and you go, I want to be like that. I want that. And I think that's the biggest single thing I've gotten to experience as a filmmaker is the wish fulfillment of, I want that. And then I get to do it, particularly if you're with the right people. And if they're treating well, it's all the better. So that's for me, that's what being a Goonie is. And I love being a Goonie at this old age.
It's pretty crazy that film has really stood the test of time. But more than that, it's crazy that Spielberg did second unit on that film. But so we're in Malta, and you obviously shot here 21 years ago with Munich. But I'm curious, you're on the jury now of the Mediterranean Film Festival. What is it like coming back to Malta, 21 years later, and being on the jury of a brand new film festival? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I actually wouldn't mind, especially since you're here, Johann, has put this together, but both of you, to do a little riff, which is kind of my methodology for being creative, on what I've experienced here and what I think is going on that you might want to, what's the word? My father was in public relations, so I'm not unaware of what it is to take the essence of something that you've done and try to bring it up as not the brand, but so a way to identify it, but in a way that it draws you in as to where are you, what's going on. So in Malta, the spirit of place here is very, very strong. And what I mean by that is the history that has come through and been a part of this island, both generated from it and come to it. All the people that have landed on this island. I mean, that's a pretty amazing group of people throughout history. But it's not even just that simple, because this is an island. So here goes the riff, the visual riff for what we're doing, where we are, what the jury is doing, what that's picking from all these films. There's so many good films. But this is the island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Okay, there's no other island in the middle of the Mediterranean that takes from all these areas around the continents. Whether it depends where you want to start. You can start with Greece and go to Cyprus, down to Lebanon and Israel and Palestine, and now you hit, just circling. I mean, where else can you go and say, this is where I am and this is what's around me? And there's a sea that's moving all the currents from all these places, and they keep going across North Africa from Egypt all the way Tunisia and Morocco, go back up to Spain, and then you hit France, Italy. The influence of these civilizations, and then what comes here, and then you have the ability here to take all that influence, and there's no place like it that takes all of that in and then can actually be a place that reflects it back out with a unique character to the world. And that's actually what this selection of movies is like that we looked at. And we went in to a jury for 3 days, saw 10 movies, just immersed in this world of cinema, and the variety and the depth and the just the vitality of the cinema that's generated feels like literally a bit of what's going on there in Malta? What is that? That's like a lot of cinematic visual storytelling that's of a very distinct culture, because it's a mixture, it's a hybrid. And so much of what we are dealing with in the world now is, how do you combine so many disparate elements? So that's really happening here. And the waters carry that information. The winds carry that information. It's been happening for thousands of years. And then you can even find places here that reflect that. And you can have them in a movie, and even say that there's something else, like we did in Munich, where we actually picked places, but we made it into 7 different Mediterranean countries.
I totally agree with your analysis. I mean, Malta has always been a bridge between continents. And when we came with the idea of developing the Mediterrane Film Festival, it is also a bridge to other countries, to other nations, to collaborate together. Because at the end of the day, film is about collaboration.
Yeah.
It's about reaching out and discuss ideas and develop ideas and co-produce stories. So, yeah, I completely agree with your analysis.
Well, there's a dynamic that I'm aware of, because being a production designer, it literally is my purview and job to find the place for the movie or to create the place. And if you create it, you have to think about what makes it authentic and believable to the story, not just what it is. I'm not a tourist looking at everything for what it actually is. I'm looking for, well, how does Kauai, in Hawaii, serve being a place that can become the home for the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park? Or how to then create something like that when Avatar, but never actually go to a jungle. But here, what you have is all of these, well, it's rock, it's stone, it's lives, it's culture, the room we're in. Things happen here. We're not, we're having this discussion, but the vision, if you just think about what's in the air that comes from being creative or having thoughts, even if you were planning a campaign here, to go out and conduct war, the idea or defense, the idea that someplace generates that kind of energy, that's what's at the heart of cinema anyway. I mean, we can talk about it on a million levels, and I know I'm going a lot deeper than most people do, but I've been in this for a long time. And if I get to age 75 and still look at it as though it's this thin little sliver of, oh, look at the movies and how good are they this year, or what's the top 10, that's just silly for me, because I have a lifetime of investment and receiving from it. And what I'm saying is that Malta has that kind of a feel to it for me, that I can see the depth. You can walk by the fort walls and you go, how thick are those to function? And that's the way cinema is to me. It's an ongoing generational handoff from one person or generation's dreams being expressed to the next. And And I think there's a lot here that comes together. And the festival itself is reflective of that kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
I know I went on and on.
No, but one of the things that I always tell people back at home in Los Angeles is that when I walk around Malta, I feel like I'm walking back in time.
Yeah.
And I've gone on, a number of the tours here in terms of seeing the different things. And, there's like a fort that was built in like 500 AD or something crazy. And like, it really is as a history, someone who loves history, it's pretty crazy.
Malta is a film set in itself. So.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is that,
And also, I mean, taking an example of Munich, doubling up for 6-7 different countries at the same time, shows the level of versatile locations that we can offer.
Yeah, but it's also why I think, Ridley Scott films here so much. And you think about the Gladiator movies or Napoleon, like there's obviously set deck that you have to do. Like if you were filming in here, you'd have to do some set deck, but like the bones are here, like you don't have to put up a wall. You just have to decorate a little bit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's like, hey, I got to touch real quick because some of the recent Jurassic Parks have been filmed here, Jurassic Worlds, but you worked on the original Jurassic Park.
Right.
I definitely have to touch on the Jurassic movies. When you were making Jurassic Park, obviously it is coming off of a huge book and it's Spielberg and, you know that like, oh, this could be really good. But at what point did you realize, oh, this could be like the game changer? Because for some people, this is their favorite movie of all time. I know a lot of people who say that. And it, revolutionized sound and visual effects. And it's a monster of a movie. It's it changed Hollywood.
Right. Well, it was a book at first, of course, by Michael Crichton. When I came onto the project, there was the galleys of the book. The book had not been released yet, but it had gone through a bidding war that Steve and Universal had won, so they had the rights to do it. And so Steven called me in early, and I had a team. It's what the art department is a sort of a team of people that then explore not only the content of it, but how to do it. And so in the content, the script had to be written, but we could go off the galleys to do some of the sequences, and Steven would then sit with us and we would talk about some of the sequences, the introduction of the T-Rex, how he would want to do that just visually. But how to technically do it was an evolving process that we didn't know how deep it would go, because stop motion was the way you would naturally in that era go, which is frame by frame by frame physically. Phil Tippett was a master at doing that. And then, but the computer was coming up, and Dennis Murin knew that, and the people at ILM knew the computer was being developed in such a way. And he, along with Steven's okay, and I was actually in the meeting when they gave the go-ahead to add the money to put the skin onto the bones of the dinosaurs, that they'd showed a cycle to see, oh my God, it can actually make those bones look like a Ray Harryhausen movie, and it's very effective. How much to put skin on that? That was literally Steven's, question. And the answer was $500,000. And it was like, okay, do it. And that's his money actually at that point, because that was the way his deal was constructed. It had a very specific budget that he was responsible for anything that went over that. And he was interested in really not so much the technology, but bringing dinosaurs to life. Another dominant species on our planet. Can they do that in a movie and make that credible? Not just a monster movie, but the awe, awesome awe of the dinosaurs, and instilling that kind of feeling into the production. I think all of us realized that we were onto something. Then when Stan Winston came into the picture and designed with his artists most of the dinosaurs, and then ILM brought the whole way of doing it in the computer into being. And then Phil Tippett joined with Dennis Murin and ILM, and they gave him a rig so that he could do what he did with his hands, but it would input into the computer. So Phil was still basically the not only the master dinosaur wrangler, he would be like the dinosaur. He's a wonderful person who, if you're in a movie, a session with him, you're talking about, well, the raptors will do this or this will happen. And then, and he'd be getting kind of Nancy, and then he'd be listening, and Frank goes, listen, I know you guys are all interested in what the humans are doing, but let me show you what those raptors are going to be doing. And he would start to act out what the raptors are going to be doing, because they're in the movie, but somebody's got to take care of who they are, not just as I move from here to here and I'm a monster, but what am I, doing? If I, when opening a door, I'm in a kitchen and it's reflective. Have I ever seen a reflection before? I'm a raptor. I've never been alive other than in my time where there was only water that would reflect anything. I mean, these types of things that went into our conversation, and you can imagine how interesting, not just intellectually, but how much you start to go, my God, we're bringing these things back to life. And then Stephen was able to use the physical dinosaurs that Stan did, and then blend them with the digital, so that there's a kind of a hybrid reality in the movie that I think still holds up quite well. But I think it's the awe and the believability and then the actual wanting them to exist that pervades that movie. And then we all caught that. I mean, I was never a big dinosaur fan before that, but after helping to bring them to life and my part in it as staging, the park, I just thought, this is magical, a magical process. Goonies was imagine you learn it on Goonies, and then you get to do some amazing stories, which were a lot of fun with a lot of different directors. And then the first movie is Jurassic Park. I mean, it's Back to the Future too. So actually, I'm not jumping, but I'm just saying that explosion of imagination and optimism, and there are no rules. There's no roads.
The most important thing is that I think, and Jurassic Park is a perfect example of it, a film that blends physical effects with computers,
right,
so is the most effective, because you look back on things from the 70s and the models, and they still look real because it's physical.
Yeah.
And the dinosaurs being built. I want to switch, if you don't mind. Yeah. The Jurassic World movies have meant a lot to Malta.
Oh yeah.
And so this success, exactly. So talk a little bit about what these big Hollywood movies actually mean for like a country like Malta in terms of, are they coming in for 2 weeks? Are they coming in for a long time? What does it actually do for like the local economy, when this big crew comes in?
Huge impact. And we need these big films here in Malta. And today we can, facilitate more these big films because we have a strong crew base. Currently, as we speak, we have 7 films shooting at the same time. When Gladiator was shooting here, 96% of Gladiator 2 was shot here in Malta in 2023. At that time, we were servicing also 5 other films. So back to Jurassic World Dominion, Malta was around 20 minutes on the big screen, and Malta's Malta. So that our impact is bigger. I mean, look at how many eyeballs saw Malta on the big screen.
Right.
But also for the economy, the ripple effects on our economy, it is so huge. And then the second Jurassic World, the reboot, the second one shot in Malta, use our water tanks. Malta's known for the water tanks. And watching them again and again, you feel so proud that just a small island in the Mediterranean, a small country, but a great nation. The pride that we have in the film movie, in the film business, it is so huge. And looking at the impact, the economic impact, looking at the jobs, looking at the business that it generates, it is a success story. And that's why we are investing more. Because the investment that the government is doing in the industry, and we have a government that understands film business, the investment that we are doing, the value of investment back, it is huge.
It's so I wanted to talk a little bit more about this if you don't mind, because I live in Los Angeles, And not to bring Los Angeles into this, but Los Angeles has basically lost all production. Everyone's filming around the world, which is because it's more incentivized. And I'm all for wherever the movies need to be made. Obviously, I would love more to be in LA as well. But what people don't realize, and maybe the citizens of Malta don't realize, and I can speak for this firsthand, is like, they don't maybe realize when people are staying, like a big film crew staying at the hotel, well, they're eating breakfast and lunch and dinner in Malta. They are getting their laundry done in Malta. They are using the cars in Malta. The amount of money that permeates throughout the economy is massive. And I don't think people realize, and I'm sort of like trying to like give you, like to explain to people who may be watching this in Malta.
For example, for every euro that we invest in film, the industry generates 3 back into our economy. So would you invest more? Yes, we will invest more. I mean, it's like when you invest 5 million, you get 10 million. Would you invest 5 million to get 10 million? I mean, this is logic.
The funny thing is that obviously it makes sense, and California can't do it.
Yeah, they just passed a new.
I'm just saying that, and you're kind of going, okay, well, stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah, I will say, not to bring.
Sorry, I have to. No, but you're not smart.
Yeah, but again, so we know we know before my time, it was a seasonal industry.
Sure.
You had a cycle: 2 years on, 2 years off, 2 years on, 2 years off again.
Mm-hmm.
Now we broke that cycle, and we had a huge rise. I mean, when we turned the industry from only 300 crew members, local crew, working for a few limited time during the year, to now 1,000 working all year round. I mean, this is a success story. And we were inspired by other nations. And I believe that now we are being a model to other nations to follow our model. And we need to keep on strengthening our product, because you can't stop changing. I mean,
And evolving.
And evolving. So that is key.
Yeah, I am curious. What do you envision? Because I've been all over Malta, and I've seen your soundstage. I've seen your outdoor sets, and I've seen the water tanks. I've seen everything. But I do think that the soundstage
Is a missing part.
I do think that having the soundstage is key, so people can do interior filming as well as exterior filming. So realistically, we're now in June of 2025. What is your most optimistic goal in terms of when a soundstage could be actually functional on the island?
I mean, my drive is that I want to build a soundstage today, not tomorrow. And from my experience, we are losing more work than getting work because we don't have the soundstage. So the soundstage is fundamental in terms of giving a guarantee to careers in film. It will generate more jobs and it will generate more careers. Now, what we are building is a world-class soundstage, which will be located near the deep tank, the water tank, which was built in 1979. Mm-hmm. And so the stage that we are building, which is around 45,000 square feet, it's a huge stage. It will hold also another water tank. So you can have an asset inside the deep tank, another asset inside the tank, inside the stage.
Right.
And when you open the elephant door of the stage, you will see the horizon of the sea. So it will be quite unique.
So you should do Goonies too.
It's fun. It's funny you say that. Because they've talked about doing a sequel to Goonies, and I am curious. My take is, if you have an amazing script, okay. If you do not have an amazing script, do not make this.
Oh, absolutely. I know. And I'm not sure you can make an amazing script. I mean, this little, but Back to the Future is the same way. I mean, E.T., you can't always, I just thinking about though, the idea of, when we built a ship in a tank inside, at Warner Brothers for Goonies, but if you have a stage here and you can do that, fantastic.
Well, I mean, they need to build it, but hopefully soon.
It will take 2 years. What I can say is that there is the determination and commitment from the government. I mean, the last investment was in the film studios, was done in the 1980s. And unfortunately, that investment then stopped short. And when I became film commissioner, I said, I lobbied my government that now it is real time to invest for the next 100 years. I mean, the benefits of the water tanks, our water tanks, which are unique globally and known globally, were built in 1964 and 79 respectively. We still are reaping those benefits.
I know.
We are still reaping those dividends. So with regards to the stage which we want to build, it's built based on a vision for the next 100 years. And if we want to make the next 100 years, that's our ambition, better than the first one.
It's funny how many people I speak to when they're talking about water tanks are always like, oh, we went to Malta for the water tanks, or the water tanks in Malta. It's just, I want to switch to something else, which is the Mediterranean Film Festival. It's now in its third year. I've been
better and bigger.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been here all 3 years, and each year, first year was good, last year was better, this year's even better. So how has the festival, why is the festival important to Malta, and how do you envision the festival in, say, 5 years from now?
It's a tool. The festival, apart from all the objectives that we have, is a business tool to get more business to Malta, to our islands. As I started as film commissioner, I told you that it's all about business, and it's all about marketing, and it's about shaping and reshaping our product. For us, this is a moment, an important moment, where we invite people like Grech and producers and directors and other production designers and filmmakers and studio executives, and those who take the decision to shoot in different countries. So for us, the Mediterrane Film Festival is a tool for our key audience to in a tangible way, see our product, imagine their stories in Malta and how we can service those productions. Apart from other objectives, which are also, it's an opportunity between countries to use the festival as a platform to discuss ideas, to discuss collaborations together, to see how we can co-produce stories together. So I think in this third edition, apart from increasing awareness about the film industry in Malta and from increasing awareness about the art of film on the global stage, I think that we are meeting all our objectives.
If you don't mind, I'm going to jump to you again. I love the Back to the Future movies, and obviously you worked on the second and the third, and I'm curious, what is it like designing the future, like working on that stuff? Because I saw it when I was young, and to me, like those, I think it's like 15 minutes of the film or 20 minutes, I forget the exact number, but it meant a lot to me, because it was the Back to the Future version of the future. Can you talk a little bit about collaborating with Zemeckis and what that film meant to you?
And I'd like to actually take that question if I can, and I'm going to try to tie it into what you were just saying about the festival, but my take on it. Because, first of all, working with Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale in those days, coming off of Back to the Future that they had already created with Larry Paul as the production designer, created wonderful backlot set that was 2 time periods, right? 1950s and 1985. And so I was coming into that, but I'm coming literally into a process that is described as where we're going, we don't need roads. Okay, now where are we going? We're really going to go somewhere. We know what it is, but we don't know how it's going to look, except that Bob, both Bobs, Bob and Bob, would say this needs to be an optimistic future. This is not a dystopian Blade Runner future. The problem is with Marty McFly's decisions in life. And that's what the whole movie is about, is how he plays out his life. Not that the world is a problem. So how do we make it appear optimistic? One of the ways was to actually have it be balanced with nature. So the idea to put a pond, even Japanese pond, in Courthouse Square was quite a radical idea, really, for the time, but also of the commercialization. So there was a vibrancy to the commerce of Hill Valley, and not to make it too overwhelmingly large or having grown out of proportions. So to project ourselves there into that world was wide open for the team and myself that was able to create that. And then on top of that, if you think about it with time travel, you come back and something that's happened in the future, which is backwards from how normally people think. You think something in the past is reflecting the future. That's something that's happened in the future has now impacted your past, and you can't come back to your home. You know, it's like going to Oz but not being able to get back to Kansas. And now Biff has taken over everything. And Biff is Donald Trump. That's what he's modeled after. Everything is right there to be seen. And that was the actual prediction of Back to the Future 2, even though that's not where you'd think the predictions of the future were. It's the whole movie. It was in time, kind of drifting in and out, because you then went to the 50s and then had to go all the way back into the 1880s in order to solve the issues to be able to come back and have your present tense be okay. And that is quite a wonderful travel experience because it's time travel. Now, that's Zemeckis. He's played that out throughout his life. It was a fantastic introduction for me. All the movies I've gotten to work on go to different places, time periods, genres. It's a mix. Malta is a mix. But I'm just going to comment to you that your film festival is more than a tool for your finances. How you identify for the world who you are and lead with what you already have, which is an identity quest. The identity quest is embedded in your culture and in all the time periods. And when people come here, they get lost a little bit, but they like the feeling. It's like going to Back to the Future. You walk down and you say, look where we are. What happened in this room? What am I experiencing? It doesn't just happen everywhere. And it's certainly in other places, it might all be locked into one huge battle between this group and this group. You have big battles that have happened culturally and historically, but culturally, you've had this influx and swirling and corners. And all I'm saying is that is why Malta is unique. That's what you can project through your film festival out to the world. This cannot happen anywhere else like this with such ease of cultures. You're used to it. So while it's a tool for your production, I understand the economy. That's the half of what I have to do as a production designer. Bring it on budget, schedule, everything. But what is it? What's going to cause people to want to have a part of it, pay tickets for it? So I would just want to encourage that you see what you're already doing and then let that kind of explode in your head and out of your head to all the people that are here and present that message. So on Sunday night, don't make this third one like, well, we're kind of doing this and we're sort of doing this. But this is the third time's the charm. You brought all these films together. A jury came in, thinks maybe this is the best, but that's not the way to think of it. It's fine that all those groups of people who participate in making it get a prize and they can work with that. But it's a celebration of the cinema of the area or the filmmakers that came from here that went somewhere else on a few of the movies. What I'm trying to get at is that's what I discovered. That's what everybody on the jury discovered when we went into those screenings, and one after another were taken to various places and states of mind around the Mediterranean. It's why it's called the Mediterranean. Define the Mediterranean as you want to experience time, places, history, anything. You can do it in Malta.
Yep, you're right.
I'm so curious.
You're right.
I'm so curious.
From a production designer's point of view.
Yeah, right. I mean, you are saying it. We are. Yes, we are.
It's
a small country, but we are very rich in history
It's vision
and culture.
and vision.
I'm very curious what's going to win the jury prize. But I
I don't know. It's
we'll find out Sunday. But you touched on Trump a little bit, and I definitely have to bring it up if you don't mind, because we're just about done. Just to let everyone know. How nervous are you about the tariffs that he's talking about? Because personally, I don't understand. Like, I understand if you're manufacturing a clock in China instead of the United States, okay, a tariff, whatever. But like, how do you put a tariff on a movie? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you film in the United States, Malta? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't add up to me. It's illogical.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a product like that. It's not a thing. It's an experience that has components that bring it together, and they're coming from all sorts of the finances, who's doing it. But if the purpose of the adventure is to take you out from your theater seat or your home theater and the TV to a place you've never seen, that expansiveness can't just happen anywhere. And that's why I'm saying this place offers up something that is a kind of back lot for your imagination in time. Does that make sense? I mean, you look at it, you kind of go, well, and I've done this. I mean, this was my job. I stand here and I go, that can be Paris. I'm auditioning the locations. Who wants to raise their hand? Okay, you can be Paris, but I don't want to have to move the trucks all around day after day after day all over. I mean, we'll move them plenty, but you're Paris. This thing looks like could be this scene. Or you're Israel right here. Well, that could be Palestine right there. And then you're actually doing something that is magic. It's cinema, because I'm just bringing those two together and there's no war. Those two are just like, I'm here and we can park the trucks here and shoot both of those, and both groups will go, yeah. Or you go into a stairway, as we did, and say, there's a place that nobody owns. And it has a presence that defies the logical what's the binary way of thinking that there's only this or that. You can use locations to be what they need to be, as long as they're associating and, in a sense, visually speaking, to the other one. Now there's a contrast, and you can build quite this, that, this. And I get to 7, I'm going, okay, well, I guess that's all, and then the rest will figure somewhere else. But you have a production. Now they can say, okay, we know how to budget then. But that's coming from the vision.
Yeah, what I'm basically saying is that I'm not trying to talk for you. I think I understand tariffs on certain things, but I do not understand tariffs on movie making and television shows when certain storylines call for you to film around the world.
Right.
How do you recreate that in America? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to just leave it alone.
No, it's we want, I'm all for collaboration and cooperation. So I think that, our key market is America and UK.
Yeah.
And the other European countries. 70% of our work comes from America and UK. So, we have to be prudent on this talk of tariffs. It's all about incentivizing business. Mm-hmm. And I totally understand that different states in America want to incentivize business, film businesses, and it's right to incentivize business.
Yeah.
So this is more about incentivizing business rather than taxing business.
And also providing the vision that will actually get people to see whatever they're looking at in the entertainment as something that does transport them. So they can actually believe something about going to wherever they've gone to. So everything's not surreal and fantasy and in the computer. You feel something, and that's what you get from being here.
And talking about vision, your vision, you just don't just create sets and design sets. You build words. So back to the vision of Rick, it is so important that our vision is clear and with objectives to win the future,
Well, an island in the middle of the Mediterranean of your mind is a good place to be.
I know we're basically out of time, but I want to ask one last thing. I swear this is the end. I'm a big fan of AI, and which is, Kubrick came up with it, and then Spielberg took it over. But I've always wondered, Kubrick designed like 600 and something or 700 images for his version of the film.
Yeah.
And when Steven took over, a lot of what Stanley came up with is in the movie.
Yep.
And then obviously Steven came up with other things, and I've done a lot of reading about it.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how many of those drawings that Stanley had, that I'm sure you saw,
Of course.
actually ended up in the movie, and how, you know what I mean? Like what?
Of course.
Yeah. So I've always wondered that.
Oh, well, the concept of AI and the treatment from Stanley of this Pinocchio consciousness story that is artificial intelligence, but it's our intelligence going into the future in a 4-act structure that was Stanley's, and Steven wanted to be true to what Stanley had done. Chris Baker, who is this incredible artist, worked with Stanley to create a kind of a visual roadmap through the movie that they envisioned. Now, there was lots of, gaps and things that didn't, like, it wasn't everything at all, but there were so many fundamentally wonderful things that you absolutely would be crazy not to just celebrate and go as far as you can with. So I arranged to have Chris come over to be a part of the art department. And then we collaborated and built tremendously upon what Stanley had done. And that involves, some of the iconic imagery from the movie, the Flesh Fair and particularly Rouge City, and the way things were designed with circles throughout the movie. I mean, I could go on a whole thing about what the movie design was, but the essence, that DNA came from Stanley, and then Steven brought it to his, and people like to divide it up as though Stanley is the mind and Steven is the heart. It's how intelligent can a heart be, and then tell the story of a little boy who's actually not human and loves his mother, or wants to love to be loved by his mother, and to be able to dream. It's a very wonderful fairy tale that I still think it's amazing, the serendipity that this idea of AI that Stanley conceived of, and even structurally with the 4 acts, same as 2001. 4th act of 2001 is to infinity and beyond. That's exactly what happens in AI, dude. 2,000 years into the future. Here we are, 20-something years into the future. We're kind of in the Flesh Fair version of the introduction of AI into our lives. Because look what it can do. If you look at that scene, and then you hear people rant and rave about AI, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying the roadmap has already been laid out as to what we're experiencing.
The other thing is, a lot of people don't realize the last 20 minutes of the movie is all Stanley.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that might have been Steven, but it's all Stanley.
And it's actually both, because the key is they both deeply, deeply loved their mothers and got so much from their mother. You can't tell that story if you don't. And they both did. And that the conveyance of that emotion and the need to be able to get to there and feel the reciprocation and have one perfect day that allows you to be, and it is the dream.
Sure.
That's their shared dream.
I could keep going, but I'm just going to say to both of you, thank you for giving me so much time here in Malta, and I really hope you have a fantastic festival.
Thank you.
Yeah.